Hello, and welcome to the Otaku Clubhouse. And this is Sink or Swim. What is Sink or Swim? Well, it's where we discuss anime, video games, movies, and just about whatever media catches our eye. Then give our first impressions of them. From top to bottom, we give our ratings of a swim, a tread, a float, a drowning, and at worst, a sink. Comments are always welcome, and of course, we're waiting to hear what you have to say too. Let's get into it.
Okay, we the Otaku Clubhouse are back with another season of anime and another season of Sink or Swim. You know what we just watched for an hour? RWBY! RWBY
Yay!
is back for the first time, quite possibly. So,
Hopefully for the last time.
in case you didn't know, RWBY was an original series by Rooster Teeth, our good friends Rooster Teeth. I can't say that.
I was about to say.
It was an original series by Rooster Teeth, you know, the creators of Red vs. Blue and other shit. Akuma can tell you about it later. It was created by this animator named Montione, who was known for his animation, or he did fight scenes for Red vs. Blue, and he also made a mini series called Dead Fantasy, where he had dead or alive characters fighting Final Fantasy girls. Seems self-explanatory. He's a rather famous fan creator, whatever you want to call it. Rest in peace. But his legacy has finally seen a proper adaptation of his ideas, which leads us to RWBY Ice Queendom. So, we're all big RWBY fans here, right?
Go fuck yourself.
Haha.
RWBY is fucking dog shit.
Anyways, so the question that you may ask yourself, and you may ask us, is this anime worth watching? Well, that's a multifaceted answer. I was trying to think. I was like, what do you guys think? Do you think if you are a fan of RWBY, would you like this anime?
I'll be honest, I think that RWBY fans will accept just about anything. They'll accept the scum off the bottom of your shoe, as long as it's voiced by RWBY's voice actress.
Stop. Let me rephrase that. If you had a passing interest in RWBY at any point in your life, would you then think that this is a good anime?
Not at all.
I think, without giving too much away, that it at least does better than the first season of RWBY.
Yes. So, in case you didn't know, the first season of RWBY is like, 9-10 episodes that are all like 15 minutes long, and they are all massive waste of time. not gonna hold any punches here. This anime goes through that in the first 3 episodes, which came out as a triple premiere for some reason. 3 episodes in one sitting. Some said it couldn't be done, but we found a way. But as I was saying, it kind of like does the story better than the RWBY original series.
That is a definite. When it comes to the original series, there's a lot of people who are watching this who have at least somewhat of an understanding. Maybe you watched the first few episodes a couple of years ago, and the major problem with the original RWBY was definitely the pacing. And within the first episode of RWBY, the original, nothing really happens, nothing really gets established, and the pacing of it is awful. Just awful.
Yeah, I agree.
It's one of those series that very much, as Gato would often point out, has been deeply affected by the Harry Potter style of story, where everything has to take place at a magical academy, because one of the things that's most understood when it comes to children and people around that age is going to school, that level of structure, understanding the dynamics of high school, thus putting all of these characters, despite the fact that I'm kind of sure one of them, being Yang, shouldn't be in school. I'm not sure how old she is, but I think that she would be like 18 or 19 at the time.
Regardless, So the original RWBY series wasted so much time exposition dumping, lore dumping, world building, and it just came out to like very mediocre episodes where characters just stood there and talked to each other, like the later episodes of Game of Thrones seasons. And you don't want to start off a show like that, certainly. Especially when it gives off the feeling that you're kind of writing as you go along and you don't have a plan, which sadly, as we know, turned out to be the case. But at least for this adaptation, they can kind of do things. They can reach ahead, like further along in the original series, and then they can supplement the first episodes with extra material or with just the important information. The first episode of Ice Queendom is kind of like a mishmash of the first episode of RWBY, along with some of the promotional trailers, which also have like character establishment for Weiss, Blake, and Yang. And not so much. Yang's trailer wasn't brought up in this.
Yang very much gets the short end of the stick.
And, maybe that will be addressed later, but for now, she's just RWBY's cool older sister. One thing they also did was show Yang and RWBY's dad very early, which he doesn't get introduced until season 4 in the original series. So they're doing stuff like that to really fast forward, or not really fast forward, even though the pace somehow, even though they did so much material, the pace was pretty decent. The second episode, they kind of skipped ahead to the formation of the teams and introducing the supporting characters like John, Pyrrha, Asian guy, and Nora. And then the third episode was somehow like original content, which
yes,
kind of took us by surprise. So
much better content, to be honest. One of the major problems when it comes to RWBY, at least as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that they establish early on character traits and personality quirks and try to have these characters doing things, but ultimately, since they lack all forms of internal monologue, it almost feels like the characters are nothing more than cutouts, meant to sell you on the idea of look at these awesome character designs and look at these cool things that these characters can do, but ultimately capitalizing on nothing.
Yes, the characterization in the anime is much better because they take these concepts that are introduced and dropped, as Akuma said, and they actually, try to find a meaningful arc for them to happen. It's like not only with RWBY giving her somewhat of a personality, which she certainly didn't have aside from I'm just happy to be here. They also did it with Blake and Weiss, and also John, and maybe with Pyrrha. They're giving her more of a reason to like John, aside from like, oh, he's so nice, he picked up my eraser.
Which, very good for them to be doing this, because John, Pyrrha, and I'd say definitely RWBY early on are probably the most bland three. Despite the fact that, yes, RWBY is the main character, her personality in the original was, I'm happy, but they also added in her being kind of a weapon nerd, but that ultimately goes nowhere, and only every once in a while does it come up the fact that her weapon, that she herself made her weapon.
Yeah. We'll see if they continue on this trend of, like, paying attention to the characters.
One thing that I did notice was the fact that they did cut out a lot of stuff. I assume that it was due to the fact that the writing in the original was very much of the mind of, hey, everybody's quirky. We have quirky character personality traits. Like, one of the things that upset me most when somebody points it out is Ozpin walks in and RWBY starts eating cookies like a fucking idiot and stuff like that. And I guess that was in Monty's original thoughts, was a character establishing moment, but that
to make RWBY cute.
It doesn't really do much for her aside from make her look like an idiot.
So mainly the stuff that was cut was superfluous. Like maybe an action scene or two got cut. But that's one other thing I wanted to touch on: the action scenes. I don't necessarily think that they're all better. Some are definitely better, but some are just one-for-one recreations of the original series. And one thing that I alluded to with Monty Ohm is that some of these scenes he personally, he directed and storyboarded. So they're some of the best looking stuff in RWBY, even though that show looks like dog shit. Do not go look it up. We're going to put a scene on the screen. I think, which one should we put? Should we just put the fight that RWBY does? Like both versions?
I mean, we can put both of those, and we can just... anything that shows them running.
Anything. Jesus Christ, yeah.
Like, unironically, the original series, one of the real reasons that anybody even cared about the original RWBY was because of the character designs, and because, unquestionably, Monty Ohm's fight scenes were great. They were. They were just... They was the best thing to ever come out of RWBY were those fight scenes.
Absolutely. So
even though they lacked certain things, like there wasn't like a ton of characterization in all of the fight scenes. When there was, it was great. Like you would see characters moving very specifically, very fluidly, and you could never mistake like RWBY's movements for Blake's movements or Weiss's movements or Yang's movements. They all fought entirely different, and when they worked together, it was something that was really great.
Yeah, so definitely thanks to Shaft for like making the show look like it's supposed to look. I guess to look the way it should have looked in our heads. One mistake I always make is like talking to RWBY fans. I'm not gonna elaborate on that. Okay, I'll elaborate on it. But one mistake is I talk to RWBY fans and I'm like, well, why does this character even behave this way? And they come up with all sorts of fucking headcanon and fanfiction-y shit. And then what ends up happening is that the writers, Miles, what's his name? Miles and Carrie, I think? They end up taking those fan theories and then they dump it into it's just bad writing. So hopefully with this adaptation, they're not afraid to correct the mistakes of the original writers, including Monty Ohm, because he wasn't a writer. Like Akuma said while we were watching it, he's not a writer. He's just an idea guy, basically. So
yeah, he's a lot like Kubo, where it's the fact that you can have them do writing, but they just want to do cool shit, and that's completely acceptable. Like, not everybody has to be a fucking author. Not everybody has to sit down and come up with these long, drawn-out stories. And one of Monty's strong suits was doing cool shit. And he did it better than just about everybody.
Now, I'll tell you right now, I wasn't expecting to come away with this thought in my head, but I want this to succeed. I want this to be good, consistently good till the end. And I want it to be successful, and I want people to actually like it because they like it, and not just the idea of it. Because where so many RWBY quote-unquote fans are just like, oh, this had potential. Oh, I like the idea of these characters, but the actual characters they like aren't the ones in the show. So
I would like to ask Hawkaiser what his thoughts were on it.
Well, that's very kind of you. Unlike y'all niggas, I was not excited to watch this. Wasn't excited to come in here and record this video.
Well, we weren't really excited.
Is it an improvement over the first couple episodes of the TV show? Perhaps. Do I think that the shit that they cut out made the pacing kind of fucking breakneck? Yes. Does it have good to decent animation in some of the fight scenes? Yes. Should this have been made? Does anybody who's not a RWBY fan care about this? No.
Yeah, maybe. We'll have to see.
RWBY gets so much shit despite being absolute fucking trash. Video games, manga adaptations, anime adaptations. For what, nigga? Why are these niggas still making this shit? It's garbage. Nobody watches it no more. Even the drones are starting to hate that shit. First episode, what do you see? You see fucking RWBY doing a bunch of fucking wacky shit, and then you try to make the trailers 1-to-1, but you don't even do all of the characters. It's already off to a bad start. But RWBY drones are gonna eat this shit up. And then they're gonna get a live action TV show. Fuck out of here.
Oh god,
man.
no.
Please.
The music is non-existent, bro. Shit was fucking garage band music, nigga. iTunes samples. Did we even hear the opening? No.
Maybe.
At the end. It was that thing featuring L.
This is one of the most unnecessary anime adaptations of all time. And it's being adapted by fucking Shaft, who is a prestigious anime studio. Ridiculous.
Oh wait, you're serious?
I mean, they are the company that's known for Monogatari.
Yeah, but they're Shaft. Let's not get distracted. So, final thoughts?
Final thoughts are, and this will lead straight into my rating. I think that the amount of talent that's currently behind this, which, if I just give me 1 second, because this is just going to be a very, very quick thing. But the amount of talent that's currently behind this, the fact that the director is Toshimasa Suzuki, the animation concept is by Gen Urobuchi, the series composition and script is To Ubukata, and it's animated by Shaft. Like, this can't fail?
It'd be very hard.
I'm gonna give it a very, very tentative tread.
Hawkaiser?
On principle alone, this is a fucking drowning. It's unnecessary. RWBY drones are already watching RWBY religiously. Not people who don't like RWBY have had like 10 years to watch RWBY. They know it's garbage. Or people like us who was watching RWBY until like season 3 or whatever and dropped it because we realized that our time would be better served watching things that aren't actively fucking killing us, right? It's a fucking drowning. It's at the bottom of the ocean. Davy Jones' locker. Get the fuck out of here with this.
You know our worst rating is sync rate.
I don't...
So anyways, you know what?
Shut up, nigga.
I'm gonna give this, and I'm gonna explain. I'm gonna give this a swim. And the reason I give this a swim is because RWBY is so bad. It is so like bottom of the barrel that this adaptation being decent is something I would honestly wasn't expecting and honestly wasn't hoping for. But because, you know, Akuma kind of allude to the fact that it's too big to fail. If it fails, bro, we're gonna make a follow-up. And I'm gonna let you know exactly how I feel about RWBY as a franchise. But until then, yeah, RWBY Ice Queendom. It's a swim for me. It's a slight swim. You know, it's doggy paddles, but you know, it's a swim. It's a swim. Okay.
Right, well, that's it. So keep an eye out on the channel for more upcoming anime reviews, movie reviews, and maybe some video game reviews, some more content. And of course, leave a like down there, leave a comment, you know, maybe share the video around, and, you know, follow us around on social media. Of course, subscribe. And we'll catch you in the next one.